Hey guys, welcome to a different kind of video. Um, Something I don't usually talk about, but I think that a lot more information apparently needs to be out there about it for just everyone in general. Um, in 2012, when I was 29, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. This has been a pretty big change in my life, and it is for many people who are diagnosed with this or any other chronic illness. Something that's a little bit strange is that it's an invisible illness, meaning you can't see it. I feel it, I see it, it affects me on the inside, but other people can't see it. And I've been struggling with ways to make it easier to understand for, I guess you'd say, common people, normal people, whoever. One thing that most people, well, let me rephrase that. One thing that all people with multiple sclerosis have in common is that they kind of have unique symptoms. Nobody's the same. And that's probably the case with every chronic illness. However, I'm going to do my best to kind of explain things that I can in a way that anybody can understand it. So, for example, with MS, multiple sclerosis, big thing is fatigue, as they call it, which is what? Just a general weary, tiredness, weakness. You know, like when you say fatigue, anybody gets fatigue. If you run around all day or for an hour, you're going to get fatigue. Yeah. So I find the best way to explain that aspect of it is imagine what it's like when you just ate a gigantic meal. Let's say after Thanksgiving or after you got really high and you binged on a bunch of snack food, whatever the case is. You know that feeling you have where you just, you just don't want to move. Your body's just like, let's rest. We just filled ourselves up. That's the most similar feeling I can find to describe what it's like to have fatigue with multiple sclerosis is, yeah, I look normal. I had 8 hours of sleep if I was lucky, but I feel like I just ate an entire meal. My body just has that feeling of, I don't want to move. And there's nothing I can do about it. Another example would be, excuse me. Another example would be mobility issues and balance issues, with which I suffer from on a daily basis. Random bouts of vertigo, I lose my balance, I have to wall walk, which is to say I have to put my hand on a wall or another solid object so as not to lose my balance. And people don't seem to really get that from the outside. So the best way I've found to describe it is imagine that on your legs you have strapped to you 2 wet bags of sand. Not dry sand, wet sand. And one leg, let's say it weighs about 10 pounds, but the other leg weighs about 15. So you're off balance. You already can't move as well as you used to. And each step is like lifting a new weight. So I found the best way to describe that is, as I just did, 2 wet sandbags on either leg, each weighing different weights. That's the best way to describe that. I don't know really what the goal here was other than to, just share information with other people. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people like myself who have MS or might have MS or some other chronic illness. And to those people, stay strong. It's not easy. Like I said, I was 29 when I was diagnosed. As you can see by my background here, I love video games. I've always been a gamer. Born in the early 80s, I've grown up with games in my life. So in 2012, right before Thanksgiving, I was playing Borderlands 2. I believe I was about a couple days into the Campaign of Carnage for Mr. Torg's campaign. It just come out. Super excited. One of my favorite series is Borderlands. Uh, but I had started experiencing a weird feeling on the left side of my body. Like I had slept weird, like it wasn't awake, like when your arm falls asleep. I was getting tingly and it just felt weird, but it was only on the left side of my body. So over the course of a few days, it got worse to the point where I could not move anything on my left side of my body. And it wasn't until, for whatever reason, but it wasn't until I could no longer hold and use my controller to play video games that I was like, okay, I need to go to a hospital. That happened to be on Thanksgiving morning, 2012, and I stayed in the hospital for about a month. I was completely paralyzed on my left side. There was a line down the middle of my body, which, when you crossed it, on the left or the right side, depending on which one, it was numb, and then you could instantly feel normal once you hit the right side. So that was an experience. I spent 3 days being tested in every possible way, poked, prodded, and everything else, until they finally came back with a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Up until that point, I was thinking I had a brain tumor or I had had a stroke or something of the sort. I was in my last week of finals in college, so I'd been working full time. I'd been a father of 2 children full time, and I'd been going to school full time. All of that culminated in multiple sclerosis. I'm assuming it was triggered by the stress of everything in my life. I was not going through all of the best scenarios I could in my life at the time, so everything kind of culminated into multiple sclerosis. And at the same time I was in the hospital, my partner of 11 years and the mother of my children had also decided that it had been enough, and she wanted to reveal she had been cheating on me and whatnot. And that's not as relevant. It's just to add to the point that everything in my life fell apart at the same time as I was also graduating. I was going to a shitty college. I'm sure many of you have probably fallen victim to the ITT Tech scam. I was one of those people, late night people, who saw the hey, do you want to design video games? Do you have no direction in your life? Are you having a kid soon and you don't know what to do, so you need to do something? Come on in. We'll sell you a used car. I mean, we will get you an education. So I ended up going to ITT for visual entertainment and then later a bachelor's in digital entertainment and game design. And as I said, in my last week of finals, when graduation and finals were coming upon us, I was in the hospital. ITT had no concern whether I was going to make it or not. They only cared if I did my work. So I did my work. I finished my finals. I typed all my papers up I needed to with one hand, laying in a hospital bed on my laptop, trying not to cry my eyes out or kill myself every 5 seconds because my life was completely ruined. I'm left-handed. Let me add that. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I'm left-handed. My entire future, as far as I was concerned, was gone because my left side no longer works. I can't draw. I can't play guitar. I can't do any of those things. What am I going to do? So I was really in a bad place. Luckily, I have a pretty solid willpower. I have a pretty good grasp of philosophy and my own sort of spiritual religion, whatever you want to call it. I was able to persevere through hope and faith in my own, let's say, entity or things of my own desire. Either way, I got through it in my own way, which is the only way anyone can get through any of these things. Anyway, cut back to the hospital. Stayed there for a month. I was put in an acute rehab. I got out of it with the ability to use a cane. I had terrible foot drop, which is when one of your feet will just not work the right way. So when you walk, it just kind of drags. And I had a 4-poster cane looking like a geriatric, as far as I was concerned, at the age of 29, what I thought was the peak of my life. I went home. Ironically, I watched The Secret on Netflix, and by the end of the movie, I was lifting my left arm up into the air in ways I couldn't do previously, and I threw my cane across my room and said, fuck it, I'm going to make myself walk. I'm going to make my foot work, I'm going to make my leg work, and I'm going to move until it looks normal, no matter how hard it is. And I did that. If you saw me now, you'd have to look closely. You'd notice I have a slight gait, a slight limp to my walk, but it's nothing compared to what it was back in 2012, 2013. Over the course of the next year, between, let's say, 2013 and 2014, I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of personal time. I disappeared from a lot of friends and family, and I worked on making myself feel like I could appear basically normal, which I think is a problem a lot of us who have chronic illnesses face, appearing normal. What is normal? It's really more that we just want to be comfortable and not have anything pointed out in any way, you know? I don't want anybody to feel extra sorry for me, but I also don't want anybody to make fun of me. You know, it goes both ways. So it's a real hard balance to strike. And it's something I find that a lot of us seem to deal with every day, that people just don't understand what it's really like. You hear fatigue and you think, oh, you're just tired. You see a sedentary lifestyle and you think lazy. You think that maybe those of us who are suffering or going through these things aren't also judging ourselves. You think, I don't wish I could work the way I used to and things like that. I mean, we all do. I can't run. I can't jump the same way I used to. I can't play sports. I can't throw my kids up in the air and wrestle around. You know, things change. But, you know, the goal is to find a balance in which maybe it doesn't feel normal, but it's acceptable. And that works on both sides. But, you know, it's easier to accept yourself than it is to get others to accept you or to feel like they do. A lot of us just feel judged in general, which often comes off as a defensive attitude, or like, you know, we feel like we're being attacked, because a lot of times we are, but it's not really that we're being attacked. We're just misunderstood. And that's what I wanted to talk about here. I know I went off on some tangents, but really I just wanted to get a better understanding out there of, at least for me, what it's like when I am affected by my multiple sclerosis. I'm way more fortunate than a lot of people thus far. I have a type of MS that is it's called RRMS, or relapse remitting, which means it comes and goes. The problem is I have permanent effects every time it comes. It goes, but it doesn't leave without leaving something behind. I've had 3 or 4 relapses in which something new happened and something different broke, and I had to get used to or get over a whole new set of challenges. And they always leave something behind. So the first one left my left side just weak, numb, unstable. I have what's called spasticity. So if you see me, if I go downstairs, my leg will shake like a paint can shaker. I mean, it's terrible. It's trembling. Um, and there's a lot of different ways that people are and can be affected, because obviously, if you don't know, multiple sclerosis is basically your immune system attacking itself because for some reason or another it finds it to be a threat. I always joked, because I was always a pretty dark, pretty, morbid person. I had a lot of issues with suicidal thoughts and whatnot. So I always joke that I wanted to kill myself or die so bad that my body finally got on board and was like, oh, okay, we'll help you out. And that is essentially what MS is. Your body attacks itself. The Immune system attacks the myelin sheath, which is a protective covering around your nerves that sends the or helps with insulating the signals back and forth. So the way it was described to me is that it's much like a phone cord. If the phone cord got a hole in it, the signal will no longer travel. It just spills out that hole. That's what's happening with MS. Your brain, your nerve endings get holes in them. Your myelin sheath gets holes in it, and the signals just spill out in random directions, causing things to not work, causing you to get numb, be paralyzed, all kinds of different things, depending on where these spots are on your brain. One of the biggest fears I've had is that it's random. So who's to say I won't one day get a lesion on a spot that controls my heart rate or some other major function of my body that I don't control mentally, but, subconsciously. So there's a lot of fears and anxiety that come along with mental illness or not mental illness, that too, but with chronic illness. MS also comes with a lot of mental illness as well. So there are many of us who suffer from not only physical but mental issues. So far, I've been really lucky. I've been able to get my mental health as stable as it can be. I've been able to continue playing video games. I've gotten my mobility back in my hand enough to do really shitty art. I've found ways. I've gotten married when I thought my life was over. It's not the end. If you're diagnosed with a chronic illness or with MS or any number of things, it is definitely not the end. Unless, of course, it is the end, like you have stage 4 cancer or something terminal. I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole different ballpark. But if you're diagnosed with a chronic illness, it's all about your mental state. You got to get yourself into a place where you are okay with it and then go from there. I can't tell you how to do that. I can only tell you that it took me a long time, but I got there. And despite what I thought was possible, I have had a pretty decent life going. I mean, I'm poor as hell. I'm disabled. I struggle with a lot of financial things, but and physical things. But I was able to get married through the power of online dating. So even if you can't just get out there and go places, or you're reclusive, whatever the case is, it's out there. The possibilities are out there. It's 2019. You don't have to just give up your life. So, I don't know. I just want it to be understood by anybody who might need to hear it that it can and will get better if you want it to and you persevere. It will suck. There are things that will never be better, but you accept those things and you move on to what can be better. Now, I'm not perfect. I could do so many things better. I could make so many better choices than I do now. That's another problem with chronic illness, I think, too, is that we get stuck in these mental Olympics where we're scared to do anything. You don't want to push yourself too hard and make yourself worse, but you also don't want to be like this lazy piece of shit that you feel like. You also don't want to mess up your benefits sometimes. Like that's a whole nother video and story, is people who are on disability benefits, the ways that works. Like you're kind of trapped into not doing anything if you want to keep that, but not being able to do anything with it. I mean, you don't make enough to live on your own. You don't make enough to really contribute. It's a difficult situation for anyone to be in. Add, job, marriage, kids, all of those other aspects into it, and you've got a cocktail for a lot of stress, which unfortunately is a trigger for most people who have chronic illnesses or multiple sclerosis. Stress is the biggest trigger. I know for a fact that stress in my life is what caused my I don't know what you want to call it, my relapse, my initial spiral down into the world of multiple sclerosis. But it's stress. So the biggest thing to do is to find a way to reduce or eliminate as much stress as you can. And the only way to really effectively do that is through your mental capacity. Like, you have to understand that there are things you got to let go. There are things you have to realize are not that important. If you're stressing over them and you can't change them, I mean, what are you doing? You can't change it. I mean, and that includes being diagnosed. That causes stress in and of itself. Like, it's a weird snowball that you have to get through. But when you get through it, you come out on the other side and you'll be like me, or at least somewhat, where you get it. You understand. This is how it is, and it was all up to me. Sometimes I think of chronic illness as God, or the universe, as I like to call it, giving you that lesson that you needed, or proving to you that you are better than you think. It's your chance. You're only fighting against yourself when you have a chronic illness. And even though others can't see that battle, you can. And it's up to you to get through it. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. If you have multiple sclerosis or chronic illness yourself, like I said before, stay strong. We're all in this together. If you play video games, hit me up on the PlayStation. Join my PlayStation group or my YouTube channel, any of those things. I mostly make videos about gaming because that's what keeps me happy. But I've started to want to delve into more personal things, such as multiple sclerosis in my experience. I have many more experiences to share and stories to tell, things to talk about, my perspective to explain. But this was more just a video to generally touch on some things. I appreciate anyone who watches my videos. Now you know that I'm not just some guy with a couple of sticks in his hand making videos. I'm an onion. There's layers. Ogres have layers. I'm an ogre. Wait. No. I'm a butterfly. No. I'm just me. And you should just be you. And together, we'll just be us. So, thanks for watching. Love you guys. And bye.